Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty good show for you here today. Going to talk about Walter Payton, aka Sweetness, on this Throwback Thursday. Real quick, if you hear some noise in the background, please forgive me. Got some work being done on the house, so not too much I can do about that. But anyway, definitely wanted to get on here and throw some love towards another great all-time running back. And just keep in mind, the NBA season is over, so that's why I kind of switched away from a basketball player on Throwback Thursday today. Doesn't mean I won't do any more basketball players for the rest of the offseason. Just means that I had football on the mind, so I definitely wanted to take a minute and do Throwback Thursday on a football player. Probably going to add some boxers to my list of athletes I got to talk about. Yeah, I think boxers is going to be great for Throwback Thursday. But yeah, so definitely want to do that. But before we get started and before we pay homage to the great Walter Payton, you know what time it is.
If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait.
Okay, so as you see from the thumbnail and you heard in my little bit of introduction there, today's episode of Throwback Thursday, we are going to be talking about the one and only Sweetness, Walter Payton. The guy was incredible, and I learned some stuff in doing research for this. Like, I knew how good he was. I don't know that I knew that he had the stretch of greatness that he had. This is a guy who obviously, he was 9 times Pro Bowler, 5 times All-Pro in the NFL. He retired as the all-time leading rusher in NFL history, about 16,720 yards, right around there, if I'm not mistaken. And he was just that good. He held a lot of records at the time of retirement. I think he had 110 career touchdowns rushing when he retired. That was a record. I'm not sure he may still have it. He may be he may have, well, he's not going to still have it. But when he retired, he had the most receptions by a running back, like 492, I think. And he does have this one, though. This one I know he's got the most passing touchdowns for a running back at 8. So that's pretty neat. But when you watch Walter Payton, he was just incredible. I mean, he could go between the tackles. He could break it outside. He had one of the most perfect gifts of speed and strength, kind of OJ-esque in that way, or Jim Brown-esque in that way. Once he got out of there, you probably weren't going to catch him from behind. He could truck you, as you saw right there in the clip, and he was special. One thing I will say, though, and this is really interesting, a lot of the highlights that I watched, you're not seeing them here, but a lot of the highlights I watched, Walter Payton gets into the open field and his arm with the ball is flying everywhere. He's got that thing out like a loaf of bread. So pretty curious to know why he didn't fumble it more. I guess once he got out there, you weren't really going to catch him. But you see a lot of other all-time great running backs with the ball tucked a lot higher and tighter. But Walter Payton was just that good. If you watch this show or you know me as a football fan, you know that Barry Sanders is my all-time favorite running back and the guy who I believe is the greatest running back of all time. But I'm not mad if anyone says it's Walter Payton or anyone says it's Jim Brown. Like, Walter Payton was just that good. He was born and raised in Mississippi, and he was scheduled to he had committed to Kansas State University. Then he decommitted and decided to go to Jackson State, which is in his home state of Mississippi, but also because his older brother played at Jackson State. And if you're not familiar with Jackson State, it's one of the historically black colleges and universities, and recently it's been made most famous by Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, coaching there before he left to go to Colorado. So Walter Payton is, I don't know if he's one of the first guys you think of when you think of the all-time great college running backs, but he is a college football Hall of Famer, and he is a black college football Hall of Famer. So, I mean, he is great. I'm not going to take anything away from him. I think he rushed for like 3,600 career yards in college, averaged 6.1 yards per carry. So, that's great, especially in an era where defenses were always schemed to stop the run, right? Where have you heard that before? Run the ball, stop the run. Run the ball, stop the run. I don't know. But yeah, seriously though, he was that good. So he goes on and he gets drafted in the first round by the Chicago Bears in 1975, which I thought one was interesting, especially 1975, and he's coming out of an HBCU and he gets drafted that high. That tells you how good he was. Now that tells you two things. Obviously, the focus on the way the game was played and coached at the time. If you you got an elite running back because that was the way to win. And then two, how special he was as a physical talent and a runner because he got drafted that high out of a non-traditional power. So that tells you that he was very special, right? And so he didn't have a great year as a rookie. I think he played 13 games and had about 679 rushing yards, somewhere right there. And so that was, a lot of times it's an adjustment getting to the professional leagues, and we've seen that with a lot of people. Most notably, right now, not necessarily in football, but we see it with Caitlin Clark, and it's caused a huge stir in the WNBA. But back to football, a lot of times guys need that year of adjustment. The speed of the game, the physicality versus college, playing against all these grown men is just a different thing. But he went from that to just under 1,400 yards in his second year. Now, the crazy part is this, and this is what like freaked me out. His third year in the league, he rushes for a career high 1,852 yards, and that was his career high. But starting from that second year in the league, he played 13 years total, and 13 years back then was a pretty long time for a running back because without the sports science that we have now, if guys ripped the knee or ripped an Achilles or something, it could either be the end of your career or you're never the same, or it takes a lot longer to recover from those injuries and those surgeries. And so he played 13 years, and over the next 11 years, this is a crazy, crazy stretch. He averages over 1,400 rushing yards. I'm like, wow. And, for the most part, the only guy I can think of that was like that is Barry Sanders, who I think he played 10 years and averaged just about a little over 1,500 rushing yards per season. But yeah, Walter Payton. And the only reason his average isn't higher is because I think he had one season with injuries in there and he only rushed for like 500 something yards. And then he bounced right back and goes right back to averaging 1,400 yards for like the next 5 years. So Walter Payton, the dude was absolutely amazing. So I can't say me personally that I remember watching him play or how good he was because he retired in 1987. I was born in 1978, so I would have had to been really young. And even if I did see him play, I wouldn't have known how good he was. I think the saddest part of his career is that he did win a Super Bowl in 46-10, Super Bowl 20 over the New England Patriots, and that was at the end of the 1985-86 season, but he didn't get a rushing touchdown in that game. I think it's kind of sad that William Refrigerator Perry, the rookie defensive tackle, he got one, and Walter Payton didn't get one. It should have been a concerted effort in place to make sure Walter Payton got a rushing touchdown in that Super Bowl because again, like we talk about back then, the focus of the game was so different, right? Run the ball, stop the run. And he being Walter Payton, pretty much was the Chicago Bears offense during that season. He ran for 1,550 rushing yards. So they literally put it on his back and he literally carried them to the Super Bowl. That in conjunction with one of the best defenses of all time, that 46 defense led by defensive coordinator Buddy Ryan, and then obviously Hall of Fame middle linebacker Mike Singletary and the rest of those guys. So elite all-time great offense and then elite all-time great running game. Between those two, they ended up going 18-1 and winning the championship. So you just say, man, that would have been probably the cap on his career to make sure that he got a rushing touchdown during the Super Bowl. But overall, I don't think you can argue with what he was able to accomplish in his 13-year career. Super Bowl champion, NFL MVP in 1977. Remember, that was that third year in the league where he rushed for 1,852 yards, I think it was. NFL Man of the Year in 1977. Coincidentally, the award is now named after him, and that's one of the most prestigious awards you can win in the National Football League, and that's for the work you do in the community off the court. So that's awesome. 5-time first team All Pro, 3-time second team All Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler, and again, so 1970s he made the All Decade team, which to me is wild because he got drafted in 1975. So he only played half of the decade, your first season is not even that good, and you still make the all-decade team at running back. Wow. Of course, 1980s all-decade team. He played 7 years there, and we know about the stretch that he had. Remember, I was telling you about the 11 straight seasons where he averaged 1,400 plus rushing yards per game. Um, and then, of course, we know he's on the 75th anniversary team and the 100th anniversary team. The Bears retired his number. He's one of the greatest football players of all time. Probably a top 5 running back of all time. Again, Barry Sanders is my guy, but if anyone wants to say Walter Payton is the best running back of all time, you can't be mad at that. I think that's just fine. But the guy he was just that good. He was just that good. And so I'll leave it there. Before I get out of here, just want to remind you we do our live shows Saturday nights at 7 p.m. And generally we do another one somewhere in the week. And then if something pops up, we might do another one. Uh Still trying to decide during the week which is the best day. You can definitely leave a comment on this or leave a comment on any other video on YouTube with suggestions for what the best day is to do live shows in the evening. Right now, I kind of got it at Wednesday at 7 p.m. Not always going to be that, but that seems like an ideal day, kind of middle of the week. And then again, Saturday nights at 7 p.m. So make sure you check in for that. Make sure you put your alerts on too. That way, anytime I decide to go live or anytime we drop content on the channel, you're made aware of that. Yeah, make sure you do all of that. What else we got? So yeah, I guess that's about it for my reminders. And before we leave, I want to make sure I go ahead and leave you with this. The Bears Super Bowl shuffle video, and we're gonna go with Walter Payton Sweetness's verse. Nothing more appropriate to head out on.
They call me Sweetness, and I like to dance. Running the ball is like making more mans. We had the goal since training camp to give Chicago a Super Bowl champ. And we're not doing this because we're greedy. The Bears are doing it to feed the needy. We didn't come here to look for trouble. We just come here to do the Super Bowl shot.
All right. So obviously they rapped very, very differently back then, and that's okay. That's when rap was young and the beats were different, so you had to rhyme differently and the schemes were different. But anyway, just going back and watching that and hearing Sweetness do his thing, man. Yeah, it was nice. So yeah, that's all I got. Leave your comments in the comment section about what you think about Walter Payton, what you remember about him, where you rank him among your all-time great football players and running backs. I'd love to hear from you on that. But yeah, that's all I got. I'm back with you next episode, and I'm out. Peace.